Hi there, greetings, esteemed scholars and researchers, people who are passionate about postgraduate research. My name is COSTA, and I just want to present briefly the program or the framework, COSTA Postgraduate Research Coaching Model that we presented this year in Portugal on the 16th to the 18th of October at a World Conference, Fourth World Conference on Qualitative Research. But before I just get in there, I just want to give you a background to the model that we presented, or the framework that I'm here to talk about. The background to the need for this framework as a pedagogy was fueled by the fact that postgraduate research is a massive stumbling block to new students, mainly because at undergraduate level, they had not been taught about the research language. They have not been taught about the methods of research. And all of a sudden, for the first time, students start to meet with this requirement. And in South Africa, you'll find out that this requirement is sometimes as a component of a master's degree, whereas other parts of that master have been based on a taught element. And then the other part now, one has got to submit thesis, and the research language is a problem. Secondly, qualitative research mainly on its own, it's very complex because it's got different methods within the methodology itself. Based on the research question, you could be dealing with a case study, could be dealing with phenomenology, could be dealing with grounded theory, could be dealing with narrative research or an ethnography. So there's just quite a number of things, epistemological requirements that students need to know. And lastly, the research capacity of other institutions of higher learning becomes problematic. For instance, we know that to supervise a PhD, you need to have a PhD. So that means the intake of the students should, at a PhD level, should match the number of capacity that we have, or you could have a certain number of students. Let's say research shows 2:1 or even 3:1. That means one supervisor to 3 PhD students. So these are creating problems. And also the language of research on its own creates those problems. We did a study, and that study was a systematic review, and it revealed a number of challenges. And you can see in the slide, for instance, that one of the universities scanned, they would, in 2009, they would have enrolled 3,957 master's students. And if their master's program was 1 year, that means only 650 students would have graduated. If their master's was 2 years, at least 739 students would graduate in 2011. This situation does not help at all, because you can correlate the number of enrollments at particular years and add 2 years of study or 1 year of study, and you see what is happening. Actually, this particular institution has not at one given time enrolled less than 3,500 master students, but you see that very rarely, between quite a number of years, you would have even 1,000 students. We're starting to see that change in 2015, the students at master's level that graduate. And also in brackets here, we are showing which of what number of those degrees were fully research-based. That's the one that is in the brackets. And you still see the same thing with a small university. It's a big university, you can see the numbers of enrollments. And then you see this one is a small university, but the pattern is the same, which says that we do have problems. And you still see, again, with another University of Technology here, that the problem is still the same. And we've also observed students, we work with a number of faculty, professors that come to help, and we got students that come in from different universities who enjoyed our community of practice, and then I'll talk about it later here. But you will see one of our cohort models in session, and different students coming together, because it doesn't matter what university you come from. When you talk about research, the standards of research are the same across all universities. They should be following scientific requirements. There would be small changes here and there in terms of research guidelines from different universities. Like, for instance, this other university would be using the Harvard referencing style, whereas the other one would be using the APA or the Vancouver referencing style. But those are small salient differences. The standards of academic research are the same across. And so this is where we observed the need. You can see sometimes how great the participation is. So you'll see that indeed there was a real need. But we also got feedback. We got feedback in a form of audiovisual material. We got feedback in the form of online comments that you can actually see if you go to some of our published articles, particularly the article that this particular a study that was focusing on challenges at postgraduate level research, and you'll see that there's quite a reception there. Comments showed the need for this kind of help. What kind of help am I talking about? Now, I just want to talk about the COSTA and its application. I will say it's a complementary approach to postgraduate supervision. COSTA is made up of 5 elements that make the whole framework. And that model looks at the concepts. It looks at the objective, not a research objective, but the original intent of the researcher. And then it goes to the situation and the tech methodology, and then the assessment of the input. And without waste of time, let me just get into each stage and show what it looks at. The C part deals with the theoretical aspects of research. And you see here, we're enhancing the research language. As a matter of fact, there is a mini course that is offered online. That course helps to develop the researcher's understanding and competence of the language along such frames as the ontology, in other words, the reality from different perspectives of research or different traditions or different paradigms, and then the epistemology, the source and the methods of getting knowledge of what we say we know, and axiology, dealing with your values, and exactly the methodology, which is the steps that the researcher follows. So we get into these things deeper. Generally, you would take them like one of the videos on our website. A PhD student was actually mentioning that she actually took these things light, but it's only when she got into our sessions that she realized that it's important to understand exactly what each concept relates to in terms of one study. So we provide the in-depth introduction to research language and applicable concepts, and we really are passionate about that. We believe this is the starting point. If you know what has to be done, then it's going to be easy to navigate through your research project. And then how do you do this? As I mentioned earlier, we've got an online program that is available free of charge. You only have to pay for a verified certificate should you really need that. But what's more important is that there are resources, and we're continually uploading these resources for the benefit of researchers. And we also have research method seminars and colloquia where students come together and share, and they get to learn with different professors that come in to offer their services there. By the way, through this, we're also offering an opportunity for those that have completed their PhDs to actually have an opportunity to increase their involvement in academia through what we offer. Then the second 3 stages, which is the objective, the situation, and the tech, look at the practical approach. We believe that once the concepts, the language of research has been established, then it is easier to come up with these 3 integral stages of your research, which look at practical stages of your research, which look at the objective, the ability to craft a proposal, a compelling proposal that funders can be interested in and see if this is what we can go with, or that your postgraduate research panel can actually go with and say this makes a meaningful study or area of inquiry. So we will take you through the objective or your intention with regard to research, and you link it back to the concepts, because to craft a proposal, you're still dealing with concepts. Actually, concepts are fundamental throughout your study and up to when you present your results and the assessment of impact, which is it will still be dealing with concepts. So these stages are all interlinked. For instance, if we look at the S part of the model, we believe that S deals with current situation. When we deal with literature, we look at the previous situation, but it's important to know and understand the current debate relevant or related to your area of inquiry. And that is a thorough assessment on literature on the subject and identification of gaps. And this stage, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to recognize that it is also part of the concept, because it is a concept on its own. And we believe that every student that gets into postgraduate research should have an opportunity for a pre-literature review assertion, and that is provided for in the concepts. So then when you get here, it's easier to write the chapter. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 also, if you are following the traditional methods, but if you are following the systematic review of inquiry, so it actually falls onto it falls onto part of your methodology itself. Talking about methodology, talking about the text, inquiry methods and establishment of trustworthiness, it's critical. It's critical. Remember, in your proposal, you've already mentioned this is how you're going to ensure rigor. So we need now to see it demonstrated in the way you collect your data. For instance, if a researcher goes there and conducts interviews, we believe that it's very important to have all the tools that you need through the collection of the interview, including what you yourself observe, the setting itself, and what perspective do you have. It's absolutely important to also reflect on your own feelings during, before, during, and even after the interview. You journal these, you write these. These are part of actually establishing rigor with regard to qualitative research. Whereas in quantitative research, it's much more easier, because we're talking about validity, internal and external validity, and then we look at the reliability of your instruments and say, these instruments, do they really bring to the table what you actually wanted to investigate? But this is now the text. It's absolutely critical, and in qualitative research, it continues to be complex, but then it's dealt with during the time of the concepts, so that when you get to the stage, you know that it is watertight, it is convincing, it is something that you can actually stand out there and say, I believe in the study because it's trustworthy, because it can be applicable to other situations, because it can actually be confirmed, its confirmability, and it also, you've dealt with issues of your own biases, and so there's so much levels of neutrality with regards to yourself, because in qualitative research, we always deal with our biases, and it's important for you to understand your biases, and it's also important to be aware of yourself. We call that metacognition, to be aware of how you think about thinking when you're faced with a situation. Now, the last part really looks at the assessment of the impact, ability to make judgment on the strength and the weakness of your study. Here, for instance, it doesn't matter whether it could be after the proposal or the final study itself. We provide a platform for students to actually present their proposition about their study in front of a panel of scholars and defend their logic of inquiry. As you can see in these visuals here, it is a serious event. It could be intimidating if the student was not prepared. But our idea is to actually, and my professor, my colleague, Professor Ms. Libisi, always says that we want to see words on legs. So we believe that if you've researched a particular area of interest and come to and actually the end and have produced an output, your dissertation, you can now go out there and be trusted and be the words on legs. And now these are some of the visuals where students come in and they stand in front of an audience, confidently so, to present their own ideas. But the other thing is we're talking with quite a number of credible publishers to help our students. But we also deal with the converting the dissertation to a publishable article. Myself, in the past year, I have already been admitted as one of the peer reviewers at Pablons. Pablons is a company that is a part of the Web of Science group or Clarivate Analytics. So I learned also what the peer reviewers look for. So we prepare students as well to be able to publish. And these, with my conclusions, you can see some of our students who are really happy. They came to the Global Center for Academic Research and we took them through the COSTA model and they completed their degrees on time and they passed satisfactorily. Thank you for listening. Visit our website on www.vleresearch.net and to learn more about what we do. That is all I can share about the COSTA model of supervision.